Hello, welcome to my reading book series. I'm reading a small book written by Leo Tolstoy. I'll be reading a chapter a day. The name of this book is A Confession by Leo Tolstoy. He wrote this when he was very sad and he was questioning the meaning of life and contemplating suicide, perhaps. He had 14 children, and he was famous in Russia as a man of letters. But he was successful, but he wasn't happy. So he started thinking all his achievements were meaningless. So he was on the brink of suicide, and he wrote this as an attempt to put his thoughts into words. So I thought it was appropriate to read this because of the end of times. Yes, there's a lot of theories that we are going towards the end of times lately, so what better time to read this? Anyway, here we go. I'm going to read a chapter a day, and let me know what you think about this book, or what you think about what he's saying, or if you hate it, let me know. So, chapter 1. I was baptized and brought up in the Orthodox Christian faith. I was taught in childhood and throughout my boyhood and youth. But when I abandoned the second course of the university at the age of 18, I no longer believed any of the things I had been taught. Judging by certain memories, I never seriously believed them, but had merely relied on what I was taught and on what was professed by the grown-up people around me, and the reliance was very unstable. I remember that before I was 11, a grammar school pupil, Vladimir Mayutin, long since dead, visited us one Sunday and announced at the latest novelty a discovery made at his school. This discovery was that there is no God, and that all we are taught about him is a mere invention. This was in 1838. I remember how interested my elder brothers were in this information. They called me to their council, and we all, I remember, became very animated and accepted it as something very interesting and quite possible. I remember also that when my elder brother Dmitri, who was then at the university, suddenly, in the passionate way natural to him, devoted himself to religion and began to attend all the church services, to fast and to lead a pure and moral life. We all, even our elders, unceasingly held him to ridicule, and for some unknown reason called him Noah. I remember that Musin Pushkin, the then curator of Kazan University, when inviting us to dance at his home, ironically persuaded by my brother, who was declining the invitation, by the argument that even David danced before the ark. I sympathized with these jokes made by my elders, and drew from them the conclusion that though it is necessary to learn the catechism and go to church, one must not take these things too seriously. I remember also that I read Voltaire when I was very young, and that his raillery, far from shocking me, amused me very much. My lapse from faith occurred, as is usual among people on our level of education. In most cases, I think it happens thus. A man lives like everyone else on the basis of principles not merely having nothing in common with religious doctrine, but generally opposed to it. Religious doctrine does not play a part in life. In intercourse with others it is never encountered, and in the man's own life he never has to reckon with it. Religious doctrine is professed far away from life and independently of it. If it is encountered, it is only an external phenomenon disconnected from life. Then, as now, it was and is quite impossible to judge by a man's life and conduct whether he is a believer or not. If there be a difference between a man who publicly professes orthodoxy and one who denies it, the difference is not in favor of the former. Then as now, the public profession and confession of orthodoxy was chiefly met with among people who were dull and cruel and considered themselves very important. Ability, honesty, reliability, good nature, and moral conduct were often met with among unbelievers. The schools teach the catechism and send the pupils to church, and the government officials must produce certificates of having received communion. But a man of our circle who has finished his education is not in the government service, may even now, and formerly it was still easier for him to do so, live for 10 or 20 years without once remembering that he's living among Christians. Where am I? And is himself reckoned a member of the Orthodox Christian Church. So that now, as formerly, religious doctrine, accepted on trust and supported by external pressures, thaws away gradually under the influence of knowledge and experience of life, which conflict with it, and a man very often lives on, imagining that he still holds intact the religious doctrine imparted to him in childhood, when in fact not a trace of it remains. S. A clever and truthful man, once told me the story of how he ceased to believe. On a hunting expedition, when he was already 26, he once, at the place where they put up for the night, knelt down in the evening to prayer, a habit retained from childhood. His elder brother, who was at the hunt with him, was lying on some hay and watching him. When S. had finished and was settled down for the night, his brother said to him, "So you still do that?" They said nothing more to one another, but from that day S. ceased to say his prayers or go to church. And now he has not prayed, received communion, or gone to church for 30 years. And this is not because he knows his brother's convictions and has joined him in them, nor because he has decided anything in his own soul, but simply because the word spoken by his brother was like the push of a finger on a wall that was ready to fall by its own weight. The word only showed that where he thought there was faith, in reality had long been an empty space, and that therefore the utterance of words and the making of signs of a cross and genuflections were quite senseless actions. Becoming conscious of their senselessness, he could not continue them. So it has been and is, I think, with great majority of people. I am speaking of people of our educational level, who are sincere with themselves, and not of those who make the profession of faith a means of attaining worldly aims. Such people are the most fundamental infidels, for if faith for them is a means of attaining any worldly aims, then certainly it is not faith. These people of our education are so placed that the light of knowledge and the life has caused the artificial erection to melt away, and they have either already noticed this and swept its place clear, or they have not noticed it yet. The religious doctrine taught me from childhood disappeared in me as in others, but with this difference, that as from age of 15 I began to read philosophical works, my rejection of the doctrine became a conscious one at a very early age. From the time I was 16, I ceased to say my prayers, and I ceased to go to church or fast on my own volition. I did not believe what had been taught to me in childhood, but I believed in something. What it was I believed in I could not at all have said. I believed in a God, Or rather, I did not deny God, but I could not have said what sort of God. Neither did I deny Christ and his teaching, but what his teaching consisted in, I could not have said. Looking back on that time, I now see clearly that my faith, my only real faith, that which apart from my animal instincts gave impulse to my life, was the belief in perfecting myself. But in what this perfecting consisted and what its object was, I could not have said. I tried to perfect myself mentally. I studied everything I could, anything life threw in my way. I tried to perfect my will. I drew up rules I tried to follow. I perfected myself physically, cultivating my strength and agility by all sorts of exercises, and accustoming myself to endurance and patience by all kinds of provisions. And all this I considered to be the pursuit of perfection. The beginning of it all was, of course, moral perfection, but that was soon replaced by perfection in general, by the desire to be better, not in my own eyes or those of God, but in the eyes of other people. And very soon this effort again changed into a desire to be stronger than others, to be more famous, more important, and richer than others. And that concludes chapter 1. So let me know what you think of this story, or if you hate it, let me know. I will continue the next chapters. And I bid you adieu. Thanks for watching. Cheers.